So my favorite comedian of all time, other than Joe Rogan, is Dave Chappelle, and you came on my radar screen because you were on a show, the Chappelle Show, back in the Fear Factor bit he did years and years ago, which was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And Chappelle, in one of the seasons, Jeff and I were talking about this last night, as a matter of fact, talked about how he was doing one of these outtake episodes. I can't remember which season it was in because they only did 2.5. He was doing an outtake episode, and at the beginning he did a riff about how back in the day, African-American communities never got the good part of the pig to eat. The white people got the good parts of the pig. So the African-Americans had to figure out how to make good food out of snout. And that's, he said, what this episode is going to be. We're going to take the snout and we're going to make good stuff out of it. And my approach to writing books about meditation is the snout is the good stuff. The embarrassing shit that happens to you when you're meditating is the good stuff. It is what will allow people to see what the practice does for you. So I take the worst, most embarrassing stuff that happens and talk about it, because that gives you a front row seat at what training the mind actually looks like. And if you can't have a sense of humor about how crazy you are truly fucked.
No shit. I agree. Well said. Well said. I think that those uncomfortable moments are so important for other people to hear about, too.
Yes, absolutely.
We need to know we're not alone with all our madness.
Yeah. What was it like on the set when you were working with Dave Chappelle?
It was great. Well, I've known Dave for a long time. I was actually on the very first episode. We, by chance, I was walking through New York, and I saw Dave. And this was before the show had even been. I didn't even know it existed. But I ran into Bobcat Goldthwait, who's there. And I'm like, "What's up, man? What are you guys doing?" He goes, "Oh, hey, Joe, we're doing a TV sketch, man. You want to be in on it?" And I go, "I only have like 20 minutes. I'm on my way to a meeting." He goes, "Here." He goes, "We're handing out ribbons for New York boobs." And he had a box, so it's me and him walking through Manhattan, and he's got this crazy fake mustache on. He's like, "You've got the best New York boobs," and he would give someone like a ribbon for having New York boobs, and it was really silly but fun. And so I was like, "Wow, Dave's got a show." And then, turns out it's the greatest sketch show in the history of the world. And a year later, he calls me up again and asked me to do this thing for, they wanted to do a Fear Factor sketch with Tyrone Biggums. Yeah, so that's me and him, a fresh-faced Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle.
Look at you.
Yeah, well, this is like, what year is this?
That's 2003, 4? Yeah.
I think it's before that.
Is it?
I think it's before that. I want to say it's 2002.
Maybe, yeah.
Because I wasn't even doing the Man Show back then, and I was doing that in 2003. So I think it's 2002.
The Fear Factor bit is one of my favorite. That's in season 2, if I recall.
I think so, yeah.
And is really one of the funniest.
Hilarious.
One of the funniest bits in a show that is, I would argue, perhaps the greatest television show of all time.
I think it's the greatest sketch comedy show of all time.
Yeah, I'm saying something bigger.
It's hard to say that, though, because if you boil down a lot of the all-time great shows, like In Living Color or some of the other ones, they had so many seasons. If you boiled them down to 2 seasons, maybe there would be some... But he's got some sketches that were just groundbreaking, like the black white supremacist who was blind.
That's right. What about, I was watching last night because Jeff and I were talking about Chappelle last night, so on the car ride home from this event we did together, I was watching Black Bush, which was another, I think, unbelievably
Which one
brilliant
was that?
sketch. Season 2, where he plays George W. Bush, his version of George W. Bush, and all the rationales for going into the war in Iraq. And it's unbelievably funny.
Yeah, he's a genius. He's a real comedy genius, but also a guy who's... You wouldn't get it if you just sort of see him do stand-up, but he's deeply introspective, like very intensely well thought out. He's not a surface guy by any stretch of the imagination.
I love him. I really do.
Yeah, I love him too.
I keep thinking that show's going to come back at some point. I'm happy with the Netflix.
That show. His Netflix specials are better. I just like seeing him unfucked with. Unless Netflix let him do a Chappelle show where they just left him alone, then it would be genius. But
do you think that was the problem in season 3?
100%. Yeah. I know it was. They were telling him what to say. They were telling him there was so much money involved that they were trying to get him to slightly water down his content in order to make it more palatable for advertisers. They were asking him to not say the N-word. There was a lot of behind-the-scenes nonsense that I dealt with the exact same administration at Comedy Central, so I'm well aware of how silly they were about certain things. They had these corporate ideas, and this was also right around the same time Janet Jackson's nipple popped out during the Super Bowl, which fucking, oddly enough, changed everything. People started freaking out about content because of a nipple. It was a very weird time for television, and in their defense, what they do is they're producers. They're not creative people. They're executives, and they didn't know how to keep it funny and keep it free and loose, but also figure out a way to make it fit into what their corporate structure is of what's acceptable and not acceptable for advertising. Yeah. So it was just a clusterfuck of control and neediness and too many cooks in the kitchen and people's ego. There's a lot of people that just wanted to affect the show just so that they can put their greasy fingerprints on it. And that's a really common thing with television, that ego aspect of, these different people who are high up on the food chain in the, executive world wanting to put their stamp on a show and then talking openly about putting their stamp. Well, that was my idea. I thought it was really important we get Dave out there like that. And for him, he was like, fuck this. I'm going to Africa for a couple months, and I'm just going to come back and quit. And everybody was like, whoa. But that's who Dave is. I mean, that's there's not a lot of people that walk away from $50 million. But he's one of them. He's just like, I don't need to do this. I could do something else. I'll just do stand-up. And he, in fact... even weirder, he didn't do stand-up for a long time, and when he did it for free. He would just show up places. Like, he would show up places with a speaker and plug it into a microphone in a park in Seattle and just start doing stand-up. There was a lot of stories of that. Like, people would just gather around, hundreds of people, and he would just be doing stand-up for these random people. And they were like, what's going on?
So how does a guy get to be like that?
Just be yourself. That's who he is.
But do you think, is that something, I mean, because that sounds to me like somebody who had a practice or something, or an inner compass that was...
Smoked a lot of weed.
Maybe that was
a
it.
big
But it's
part of it. He smokes weed all day. I mean, if you watch his new Netflix special, he's smoking a vape pen through the entire special to the point where I watched it and like 40 minutes into the special, I started getting anxiety. I'm like, how high are you right now, man?
You said you might. Were you high in your Netflix special?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you said at the beginning you were baked, and I was like, is that a bit, or is he?
No, I was high, but I didn't keep getting high through the special. Like, Dave keeps hitting that vape pen, and I don't know how strong that vape pen is, but he's like 7, 8, 9, 10 hits deep in 40 minutes in. I'm like, yo, this could get super slippery. Yeah, he just kept pulling out this vape pen. Yeah, it was literally with him through the entire set in his hand.
That's increasing the degree of difficulty to levels that I would not want to explore.
That's testing the mind. Talk about an isolation tank.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's freeing in a way because you're so comfortable that experience of like giving in to the marijuana, like giving in to the THC, where you just sort of like float away on it and don't question it.
Yeah.
But as you were high backstage getting ready to do your Netflix special, and I would imagine that's a pretty stressful environment because they're taping this thing. It's going to be your special. It's a big deal. Yeah. Did you not have a moment of like, holy shit, I shouldn't have smoked that?
No, it's fun. It's just like, this is like an incredibly privileged position I find myself in. Like, this whole thing is amazing. It's a crazy wild ride. So I'm about to do the wildest part of the wild ride, film a Netflix special. And it's just joy. It's just taking it all in and going, this is so... Like, all the hard work is done. The material's in place. The writing has been done. The rehearsal's been done. There's been hundreds and hundreds of sets. Everything's tightened up, and all the notes are in place. And I've run it 100 times. And by the time you saw the film, the Netflix special was mostly the 4th show of 4 tapings. So I've already taped 3 tapings, so I've already got it in the can. So there's most of the pressure's off. So it's just like a regular show almost.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just happiness. Just let it happen.
Yeah, you seem happy while watching it.
It was fun. Yeah. It's a good time. But it's one of those weird things where, live stand-up is weird itself because you're dealing with all these factors, the people's consciousness. You're trying to manage your material as well as bring them in and make sure your timing is right and everything's smooth. And then on top of that, there's the filming aspect of it. Like, this will be locked in and recorded forever. Like, this is going to go online, and then people will have copies of it, and then it will be, this is your material. This is your thought process. Like, do you have this ironed down? Do you have this edited and parsed and sectioned, and have you thoroughly examined it? Have you used the correct economy of words? Have you boiled it down into the best possible version of itself?
It's so funny with stand-up, though, because you watch it as a because I've never done stand-up, but you watch it as a consumer, it looks casual, it looks off the cuff.
It has
but there's
to be.
an enormous amount of work that goes into it.
But it's both casual and off the cuff and incredibly well thought out and rehearsed, and it has to be both of those things.
But don't you have to? So you prepare like crazy, so you got that. But then when you're actually there, isn't there a certain amount of just having to let go and try and be actually responsive to what's happening in the audience? I mean, that must be the skill. It's like you do the preparation so you can almost let go of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is both. Like, you have to be prepared, but you also have to be loose. And you have to be completely engrossed in what you're talking about, but also in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.